Yeah, we will just start with the session for now. So before we actually jump into the real topic of training, we just want to understand the audience here. So anyone who is actually very fresher to the team, like not experienced much, and you're learning this as part of your career starting, anyone who is fresher, who has no experience in working in IT or testing. You can unmute yourself and just let me know, or you can drop your message. Yes, Kartika says yes, Devi, Krishna, Arya. Anyone in the participant list who is more than 6 years of experience? More than 6 years?
No.
No one? Okay. Okay. So I just want to plan the training accordingly. That's why I just want to know like how the audience are today. And any non-Malayalis in the group who cannot understand the local language? Any non-Malayalis here who cannot understand the local language? Okay, anyway, we'll try to make the session in English only because for the sake of your exam point of view, like many of the keywords and things like that, you have to keep in memory. For that, actually, the preferable language for training is actually English. But if you have any doubts or anything, we can switch. That's not an issue. Okay, so with that, we'll just start with the training. So, welcome everyone to the first session of ISTQB training. So today, this is the first session. Myself, Ashwati, I will be driving the session today. So we'll be starting with the first module in ISTQB training, that is fundamentals of testing. So before actually going to the topic, I will just introduce you to the exam and how the syllabus is oriented. So as you may be aware, ISTQB is International Software Testing Qualifications Board. And this is a prerequisite exam that you have to pass to appear for the advanced levels. Okay. And this has 40 multiple choice questions with a score point of 1. 65% is the pass mark. That is 26 or more points you have to acquire. The duration is 60 minutes and there is no negative marking. Okay. So you should attempt all the questions. Difficult questions you can revisit at the end and you have to answer all the questions since there is no negative marking. Okay. And coming to the syllabus is oriented with 6 modules, starting with the fundamentals of testing, which we are going to discuss today. Then testing through SDLC, static testing, analysis and design, managing the test activities and test tools. So these 6 modules we'll be discussing in the upcoming days. Okay. And how the exam structure is, the ISTQB has designed it in such a way that they have categorized it into various knowledge levels. They call it as K levels. Okay. That is, we will have K1, K2, K3 level questions. K3 is application level questions or problematic questions, mostly from the test techniques chapter, which you'll be learning in the upcoming days, will be this K3 level questions. That is 8 questions you'll be having. K2 will be indirect questions. You have to answer from your understanding. Okay, that is 12 questions you can expect. And K1 will be the very, very direct questions, which will be directly some definitions or very direct examples or something like that they may ask. That is K1 level questions. So these are the various 3 K levels that is coming in the ISTQB examination. So almost all the topics or the modules will be kind of theoretical and practical things that is coming up, except the test techniques chapter, which is more on to the problematic side, or the you can expect K3 level questions more there. But otherwise, most of the thing will be kind of K1 and K2 levels only. And we will try to make the session as interactive as possible. You can unmute yourself. You can stop me. You can ask your doubts. Okay, we can clarify it then and there. And also, we'll try to make the session interactive because most of the topics will be always kind of theory things for you. But we will try to relate it to your practical knowledge or your practical experience in your project so that you can easily relate and understand that. Okay, any doubts on the general things that we discussed? Any queries before we move on to the real topic? Okay, I take it as a no. So today's topic will be starting with the first module, that is fundamentals of testing. Okay, before moving to the topic, I want to understand what is your definition of software testing? What is software testing about? Can you please give me the answers in chat, or either you can unmute yourself and let me know. What is software testing for you? Yes, please, quickly. Who want to attempt?
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think software testing ensures the quality of the product.
Okay. Any other answers, please? That is correct. Thank you. It's Uday Lakshmi. Who's that?
Yes, ma'am. Uday Lakshmi.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Anyone else who want to just try and attempt? There is nothing wrong or right here. Please make the session interactive. Otherwise, you will fall asleep. There is some response in chat. Let me see. Process of verifying and validating a software. Thank you. That's correct. Okay, some other response. Before releasing a product to customer, need to check performance, quality, and defect free. Software testing is a procedure to check this. Yeah, that is correct. All your answers are correct. So, before we actually start the topic, so many of the things that you see here, you might feel, those who have experience working in the projects, you might feel that, okay, I am doing something differently in my project, what ISTQB is saying. Okay, there may be difference in your practical things, what we see as theory here. So ISTQB, whatever they are saying is the standards that are set. It may not be followed in all the projects. Some we are already following it. Okay, so to crack the exam, you have to unlearn some of the learnings you have and align to whatever ISTQB is saying about a particular topic. Okay, so now we started off with the definition of software testing. So let's see what software testing is in terms of what ISTQB says about it. Okay, as you mentioned, it's validating the quality, everything is correct. But what they have defined as, it is actually set of activities. Okay, it has a combination of activities to discover the defects. Okay, which is already you people mentioned, that is validating. Anyway, that we are ensuring quality there, that is also correct. But it has a combination of activities. What is this combination of activities? You will learn this in detail in today's session, as well as continuing sessions also. You will have some topics related to this. Okay. But for now, you can understand there are various phases in testing, like planning, analysis, design, execution, completion. So many stages are there. And ISTQB says software testing is a combination of all these activities. And also there are two topics which says testing is actually can be categorized into static and dynamic. Anyone knows here what is the difference between static testing and dynamic testing? From your learning experience or from your practical experience?
Static testing will be checking documents, like it involves walkthrough, reviews, inspection. But in the case of dynamic, it will be like functional, non-functional testing. This all comes under dynamic, I think.
Exactly. Perfect. Yeah, that is correct. Thank you. So dynamic and static, what she was mentioning is very, very correct. Static doesn't involve the execution of your software. Static means you are indirectly improving the quality. Like, for example, the requirements, right? When you get the requirements, you may have a requirement review. Okay, what is it done for? It is basically to ensure the quality only, but you are not executing anything there. But you are indirectly contributing to the quality. Another example, like the code reviews that happen in the project. After the development is done, the development team has a code review with his technical lead or architect, right? That is actually part of static testing. Okay, because we are indirectly improving the quality there, but we are not executing anything there. But dynamic testing involves execution of your software. Okay, whatever you are doing in your projects, right? Testing, executing your software, whether it's a software application or if it's a hardware product, you're executing it and validating the defects or validating the software. That is called as dynamic testing. I'm not going into much details about it because one module we have dedicated for static testing. Okay, there you will learn all the process and everything there, review techniques and all those things. Okay, just now understand that what is the difference between that. And whenever we refer as test object in any of the portions, it is nothing but what is your software under test. If it's a software application, it's that is called as a test object for you. Okay, there will be some terms which is being used in the ISTQB in all the modules, which they use it as common. So you need to know that. Okay, you need to know that. Sorry. So you need to know that that keywords or those words, which is what is their actual meaning. Sometimes this will be coming in your questions as well. So you need to know what is the actual meaning of that keywords, what they are mentioning. That is what one thing is this test object. Okay. So let's move on. So next we are moving to the most important topic, I will say. Any ISTQB paper, you will be definitely getting some questions from this. 1 or 2 questions you can expect. Mostly K1 and K2. So remember the days when you were in school days, you used to remember the periodic tables in chemistry class? Yes, right? So similarly, I don't say you have to by heart these points, but you have to walk through these points repeatedly to understand that and to keep it in your memory. Okay. So some K2 level questions will also be asked, meaning like you have to understand whatever points is being mentioned here, and then you have to answer the questions. Okay. Before going to discuss about these points, since we have many freshers in the group, I have to explain some basic idea about what is Agile framework and how the Agile processes are. Okay. In almost all the modules, you will have some references to the Agile methodology. Okay, so I will not go into much details because if I go into much details, I need one session itself to explain about Agile. But whatever you need to know to actually understand some of the words here which comes related to Agile, I will just explain that. Okay. So Agile methodology is considered like nowadays most of the projects are using Agile Scrum methodology. Okay. In Scrum, actually, how we work is we have a defined duration where we select some set of requirements to deliver. Okay, like 2 weeks. That selected duration, we call it a sprint. Okay. Maybe after 3 sprints or 4 sprints, we are having a production release. Okay. That is designed according to, whatever the organization said or whatever our project team sets. There are standards defined, but that can alter here and there based on the project that we are working. Okay, so basically you have to understand the short duration which you take the requirements and deliver it, that is called as a sprint. Usually it's of 2 weeks duration. Okay, and in the older or traditional way of working, we have the waterfall and other SDLC models, right? You have a module which you will learn about all this SDLC life cycle. So I'm not going into those details, but in compared to the traditional models, what is the difference in Agile is in each sprint, they will deliver something which is actually kind of a working software. Okay, and in traditional world, we used to call it all requirements that are given as merely requirements, but in Agile, we call it as user stories. So whenever you hear the term user story, you just think of like it is similar to whatever is called as a requirements for you. And in each user story, some acceptance criteria, we call it as acceptance criteria, will be given. And the tester who is going to test that software will be validating against the acceptance criteria given. Okay, what is given in the acceptance criteria, he will test that and deliver. Okay, that's the understanding. And we have various ceremonies that we observe as part of Scrum. That is, we have daily stand-up calls. We call it a Scrum call, where we discussed about the progress of each day, what are we working on, what is the status, those things we discuss there. And before we start the sprint, we have the sprint planning meeting where we plan what all user stories or requirements we have to take for that sprint. And we have sprint review meeting where we demo the things that we are going to deliver after the sprint. And at the end of the sprint, we have the sprint retrospective meeting where we discuss about what went well in the previous sprint, what didn't went well, and what are the action items to improve. So these are the main ceremonies that we observe as part of Agile. So if you want to know in detail, you can read about Agile Scrum methodology, but this is the basic thing you need to know. When we go through the slides, there'll be some terms coming up here and there. So that's why I just explained about Agile here. So now let's come to the topic, that is objectives of testing. So let's go by one. What is ISTQB telling about the objectives? Okay. So first objective says to evaluate the work products such as requirements, user stories, design, and code. Okay, that is kind of part of static testing, I will say. Okay, like the requirements or the user stories in Agile or the code reviews that we do, right? That all kind of reviews or static testing that we do is actually one of the objective of testing. Okay, that's what mentioned in the first point. Now, second point is to verify whether the specified requirements have been fulfilled. That is what a tester do, right? That is what I mentioned. In user stories, we write the acceptance criteria, and as a tester, we validate against the acceptance criteria. That is why it's mentioned here in the bracket. It's not there in the syllabus. For your understanding, I have kept it. Review the ACs means acceptance criteria in the PBI. PBI is nothing but you consider it as a user story only. Okay, whatever you are going to deliver in that particular sprint, that maybe 5 user stories you have taken. That is 5 requirements you just consider. Whatever is given as requirements to you, you have been verifying that whether it is being fulfilled. Now, coming to the third objective, validate whether test object is complete and work as user or stakeholder expectations. Okay, that is, I hope, like, we have different phases of testing, like user acceptance testing is there, then system testing is there, various things, various phases are there, right? Actually, what is done in a UAT testing phase? The users who are going to use the application will be part of this UAT phase testing, and they will verify whether the test object, what is test object? The software that you are testing. They are verifying whether it is complete and is it working as what the user expects. Okay, that is also considered as one of the objectives. So these objectives, when we are telling, you may be already doing that and you know it, but the thing is, you have to keep go through it multiple times to understand. As a point there, or keep it in your memory. Okay. So when you actually do all these 3 bullet points, whatever we discuss now, what are you building there? You are actually ensuring, rightly said, like some of the candidates here mentioned, right? When I asked about software testing, maintaining the quality, or you are actually, when you are doing, like when you are verifying the requirements have been fulfilled or whether the test object is complete, overall, what are you doing there? You are checking whether the quality is met there. Or when the quality is met, you are actually building confidence in customer. Like he get a confidence, okay, whatever I'm getting out of our development team, or after the testing is passed, whatever I'm getting is of high quality. So we are building confidence there. Okay. Next is triggering failures and finding defects. As testers, what are you intended to do? We are always trying to break the system, correct? As a tester, we are always trying to break the system. We are always interested in finding defects. So what are you doing as a tester? You are actually triggering the scenarios which are failing the system and reporting the defects. That is what is called as triggering failures and finding defects. Any doubts on these points what we discussed? It's very, very simple. Only thing you might be knowing this, you already know this. Some of you might be doing this also, but you may not have realized this as a objective. That's all it is. Okay, if you have any doubts, please ask me. Okay, another objective is provide sufficient information to stakeholders to allow them to make informed decisions. What does it mean? Suppose you are testing your software and you find that, okay, this is not kind of a deliverable software. There are so many defects in place. Okay, so as a tester or as an objective of testing, you can consider that you are giving enough information to your customer to take them, to allow them to take defined decisions. Like example, thing like you are testing the software and you are finding like the software is not at all stable. You are seeing lot of issues here and there. So you have been providing that information to your stakeholders, and they can take a decision, where take a call like whether we need to postpone the date, or we have to defer something, or we have to alter something for our release. Okay, so you are providing that sufficient information there. Then to comply with contractual, legal, regulatory requirements, what does it mean? It depends upon the product you are testing. Okay, suppose you are testing a medical product there. What does it do? Medical product means it is not like you can functionally test it and certify it. No, it has to obey certain standards, because to release a medical product in market, there are FDA guidelines should be adhered. There will be so many contractual things that you have to adhere to. So those all things have to be adhered. So that is what I mean by it depends upon the product. If it's a website or a web application you are testing, may not be applicable in that case, but some other standards will be applicable. Okay, like ADA compliance, American Disability Act, those compliance should be adhered in a web application. Okay, that's what it mentions. Like I mentioned, like it depends upon the product you are testing. Also, one of the objective of testing is to ensure that coverage, you have enough coverage of your test object. Thing like you are not testing the end-to-end functionality or something you missed. Okay, that is not good, right? So you have to also ensure that whatever you are testing is having, or you have all the test cases covered, all the requirements are mapped to test cases. That is a traceability you should have. Reducing the level of risk of inadequate software fault. That's simple. Like whenever you are doing all these things together, like when you are validating the things, keeping the stakeholders informed, the level of risk will be obviously reduced, because you are actually enhancing the quality there by doing all the static or dynamic things for testing. So these are the various objectives what ISTQB says. I hope you can relate it to whatever we discussed with the real examples that I mentioned for each of the points. If any doubts, please stop me. Can we move further?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thanks for that. This acknowledgement actually is very, very good, because I also get an impression like you people are not sleeping and you are understanding the things. Okay. Thank you. So let's move to the next topic, testing and debugging. Okay. All of you might have heard about this two things. Okay. Debugging is always considered as a developer activity, which the developer do. Testing, you already know. We discussed that, right? What is actually testing all about? So I will make you understand with the help of an example. Okay, suppose thing like in your project, you have been testing something and you reported a bug. Okay, now what will the developer do when you raise a bug? He will see the details of the bug, whatever you have logged, like the details, steps to reproduce, or expected results, all those things. Maybe you have attached some screenshots or logs. He will verify all those things, and he will try to understand what is actually causing this issue. That is called as the debugging activity. Okay, so maybe this is a Java code and he is using a Eclipse IDE, okay, for his coding. So what will he do? He will put this IDE or the Eclipse in the debugging mode. There are different modes available. If you are an automation tester, you may be knowing this. So he will put it in debugger mode, and then maybe a user, I mean the tester have input a field like example, he is expecting a Boolean output there, true or false, but he is not getting that. Okay, so suppose a variable is not returning the correct result, then the developer put it in debugging mode and try to understand why the variable is giving that wrong value there. That activity is called as the debugging activity, which is actually used to identify the root cause of that problem. And then he finally provides a fix, and he assigns that defect back to the tester. And what does the tester do? Tester does it. What that testing is called as a confirmation testing, to ensure that the issue what is being raised by the tester is resolved and it's working fine. That is called as a confirmation testing. This is the testing and debugging process all about. Okay. So tester, what does he verify? He verifies that the requirements have been met or the acceptance criteria given in the user story have been met. While debugging focuses on trying to root cause that or identifying and fixing the defects for you. Okay. So the first point, you just read that once more. Testing helps identify issues while debugging is the process of fixing those issues. Okay, that's the difference between testing and debugging. And debugging techniques, if you are asked to, how to debug, maybe if you're an automation tester, you'll be familiar with this. You can put a print statement to understand like why that variable is, what is the current value of that variable, or some logging techniques you can use. You can do the code review to actually debug some of the things. Okay. This keywords, and this is exactly mentioned in the syllabus. That is why the last bullet point is being kept there. Debugging process involves 3 steps basically: reproduction of a failure, diagnosis means finding the root cause, and fixing the cause. These 3 combinedly we can call it as debugging process. Any doubts here in testing and debugging? Here also maybe you can expect one question. If no questions, we'll continue. Okay. Now, we discussed about what is software testing, what are the objectives we discussed. Okay, what is the difference between testing and debugging? Now, why is testing necessary? Basically, in any project that you work, we'll have a testing phase, right? Why actually we are doing this testing? Can we release the code, or whatever the development is done, can we directly deploy it into production? Does it cause any issue without any the testing is not done? No, right? Because we are doing all this to ensure the quality, everything is working as expected, or delivered as per the user needs. All those things we are ensuring there. Okay. And we cannot say like identifying defects is actually the role of functional tester alone. No. Okay. We have different phases as we discussed 1 or 2 slides back, right? UAT testing phases there where actually the users are put into the testing phase and they should be giving the feedback for it. Okay.
Yeah.
And debugging, just now we learned, right? Whatever defects the tester logs, debugging removes the defects reported by testing, or it's considered as a non-testing activity. And why actually like whatever testing we are doing, right? How it actually contributes to success. So whenever we log some defects, actually we are ensuring that quality is met, and also like this, there is no leakage to the production, or the users will not report this if you have find that in the testing phase itself. Correct? So thereby actually we are increasing the quality of the software, and also like meantime to fix that also will get reduced, because thing like if it is it came as a production issue, it will be very costlier to fix at that time, right? Because everything is deployed into production again, we have to redo the entire process. Correct? We have to identify the root cause, then give the fix, maybe as a hot fix we have to give. It's a very high priority bug that is being logged. So all those things are there. Now, you may have heard this term quality assurance. Okay, there are 2 terms which you need to understand: quality assurance and quality control. Okay, whenever you hear the term quality assurance, you have to always relate it to process oriented things. That is similar to the static testing techniques. Meaning like all the reviews that you do, like example the code review or the requirement review that you do, that is all the processes that you are following in the project. Maybe when a production bug is received, you may do a root cause analysis for why that bug is missed from the QA. Okay, that's a process that you follow, which is part of quality assurance. But quality control means that is product oriented things, which means you will be actually doing the dynamic testing there and validating the software. Okay. Quality assurance and quality control combinedly, we can call it as a single term, that is quality management, we can say. Okay, is it clear? So many a times this has been asked as a very direct question, like the definition of quality assurance. Anything related to process, you have that in the option. You can go for quality assurance. Control is everything related to dynamic testing that you like.
Can you
active
please
testing.
repeat it again? That what's it called when the quality control and quality assurance is combined?
Quality assurance means the static testing that you are doing. Example, like in Agile, you may do a backlog grooming, right? Like
Yeah.
whenever the user stories are there, you have a discussion within the Scrum team or within the team. I'm just making it to the layman terms because there are freshers also in the team. Maybe they don't understand the terms of it. That is why I'm just relating to common terms. Okay. When the backlog grooming is done, actually we refine the user stories, right? Maybe through the discussion with the team, we identified like there are some missing acceptance criteria that is to be added to the user story. Okay. Those refinements, that is part of some review, right? That we call it as backlog grooming. Okay, those kind of things we can consider as process oriented, like the code reviews, requirement reviews, those all things, meaning like static testing things, we can call it as quality assurance. But when you're actually executing your software, validating the software and finding the defects, that can be included in quality control, which means it is product oriented. Everything that processes that you are following in the project, that will come under quality assurance. Okay, makes sense?
Yes. But what's the term that you said when the combine when quality
Combined,
control
it is called as quality management.
quality management? Okay.
Yeah, quality assurance plus quality control, all together we can call it as quality management. That is not there because I think they removed it from the current syllabus, but it was there in the previous version of syllabus. That is why I was mentioning that. It's not kept in the recent version of syllabus, but since this topic is similar, I just mentioned that. Quality assurance plus quality control, over the umbrella we call it as quality management. Okay. So as mentioned, QA is more focused on to the processes that we are following, like preventing the defects by establishing or maintaining some process. That is what is mentioned in the third bullet point. And quality control is like you are executing it and validating the software, which means you are actually detecting and fixing the defects through testing and inspection. It's the real testing that you do, right? That is actually quality control. Hope that's clear for you. Now,
Yes.
little more detailed explanation, which is mentioned to actually make you understand what are the key activities that is involved in quality assurance, that is QA. Okay, so example like that, if you're starting a new team, okay, maybe some freshers are there in the team, it is not experienced, so you have to provide training to the team members, okay, on the best practices or the team, how we have to conduct the testing or some grooming sessions. Okay, that if you are following any such process in your project, that can be considered as part of quality assurance. Okay, the audits that happens within the project, that is another example of quality assurance that we do. That's actually one process, right, that we follow in the project. Okay. In Agile, we conduct retrospectives. I mentioned just brief, brief introduction about Agile methodology, right? At the end of the sprint, we conduct a retrospective to understand like what are the action items to improve in the future iterations. That can be considered as one of the quality assurance activity. Okay, whatever processes that enhances quality in your project you are following, that will come under quality assurance. And if you go to quality control, as I was mentioning, it is similar to dynamic testing. Like whatever you are executing your software, validating the defects, all those entire process that we are doing, right? That will come under quality control. I hope with this examples, it's much more clearer for you. Is it okay? Can we move?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I think one more end note they have given, like test results, whatever we are testing can be used by QA and QC. QA QC means here quality assurance and quality control. quality control, they are used to fix the defects. QA, quality assurance, whatever review techniques or grooming sessions we are doing, right? It is kind of a feedback that we are giving to the team. Okay, like the process part of the project, whatever process you are following. Okay, like a feedback. So thing like you are doing a requirement review. Okay, you have identified some flaws in the requirements. You have added some acceptance criteria to it. Some additions and updations are made in the requirements. That is been initially there. Okay. So in that case, you are actually giving a feedback. Okay, this can be done differently, or this should be included, this should be removed. Like that, some feedback mechanism is happening there. Yeah, that's what it's mentioned there. So usually from this area, they ask a very direct question like some options related to quality assurance will be given and you have to choose. Okay. Now coming to the next topic, this is another topic which usually comes in most of the papers, ISTQB exam papers. That's error, defects, and failures. Okay. What is an error? It's a human action that produces unexpected result. Okay, like maybe when the developer is performing the or doing the writing the code, basically, maybe some syntax error or some typo error he has made. It's considered to be an error. A human error, any human error that can be there, we call it as error. Defect, another word for defect is bug. Maybe in some projects you will call it as an issue. So in some projects, some people call it as bug, defect, all are the same. Okay. Defect, often referred to as bug, it's a flaw or anomaly in the software that may lead to incorrect behavior. Okay, think like you are implementing a calculation logic in your software. Thing like in that logic itself, there is some human error or an error made in that calculation logic, which resulted in an incorrect behavior. So obviously, when the tester tests the system, he will log it as a bug. Okay, that's called as a defect or a bug. And what is a failure? When this defect is not being resolved and goes to production, the system will fail. Correct. With this defect, that system will fail. That is, in actual operational environment, this whole system or the software you are developing is going to fail in some condition. Hey team, can you hear me now? Sorry, I got disconnected in between. I didn't realize that.
Yes, you're audible now.
Yeah. Have you heard of the topic till error, defects, and failure? Till failure, whatever I discussed.
Yes. Can you explain defect again?
Yeah, sure. Defect is something like, suppose you are developing a software and you have there a calculation logic. Okay, and the logic has been not written in a proper manner, or there is some error in the logic which resulted in an incorrect behavior. Okay, which resulted in a bug. The tester, when actually test the system, he will raise it as an issue or a defect or a bug. That's called as a bug, resulting in an incorrect behavior due to some anomaly in the software. That's called as a defect.
Okay, got it.
Okay. And what I was mentioning when we have cut the call is this error, that is human errors, may be due to n number of reasons. Maybe due to time pressure, maybe lack of knowledge with the tester, okay, or the developer. So there are many reasons for the error part actually. And another thing to mention is all the defects, okay, all the what do you say? All the unexpected results, we can't say it as failure. So we mentioned like failures are called as unexpected results. But all unexpected results may not be called as failures. What does it mean? So we call it as false positives as well. I will tell you an example. So thing like you have, as a tester, you have logged a defect. Okay. And it is assigned to the developer. And developer, when he does the debugging activity, he comes back and reassign the bugs to you saying that it is working as expected. Okay. Maybe you have given a wrong test data input there to test the system. Okay. You are testing a field and you say that, okay, I didn't get the expected output there. You raised a bug. But actually, that system or that particular field you are testing should not have that test data which you gave us the input. Okay, maybe you are testing a text field where you entered some special characters unknowingly, you didn't read the acceptance criteria properly, you gave some special characters there and you are expecting some result. But that actually that field should not accept the special characters. That may be the acceptance criteria given. So that is why all unexpected results cannot be failures. There will be false positives also. So now any such situations have you come across in your project where you log the defect and the developer came back and saying like it's not a defect? Don't say it never happened. It will happen at any point in time. At least once we may have experienced this. Any experienced members in the team? Can you comment on this? No. Do we have at least 2-year experienced members in the team or all are freshers here? Team, can anyone, you don't need to say the answer. I mean, any experienced candidates here, at least 1 or 2-year experience? You don't have any
Yeah.
background? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I have 2.5 years of experience in QA.
Okay. Okay. So, Delakshmi, you have never come across such a situation? You logged a bug and
Actually, I have come across many situations like there have been some data discrepancies, and
okay. Okay.
yeah, in such conditions, they may tell like there is no issue in such scenarios and all, but the issue was
That is
maybe
again a
with the
false
database
positive
and all.
only.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. That's also a kind of a false positive one. That's why we call it as not all the unexpected results are failures.
Yes.
Okay, now think like you have delivered a software to production. Okay, and a production issue is being reported. Okay, so now from any of the experienced candidates here, when you receive a production bug, what will be your test approach or how will you test it? First, when we receive a production bug, we will analyze why that bug has been missed from our end, right? Suppose thing like it's a functionality miss and it is missed from our testing. We didn't caught that in our testing and it came as an issue from production. So we have to, in such cases, when we receive a production bug or UAT bug, we will do a root cause analysis, like how we have missed it or what was we missing there. Okay, thing like you are working on a credit card implementation software. Okay, and there have been different categorization of credit cards, like if it's a silver category, platinum category, we have different offers processed for that I mean credit card. Okay, and once this is released to production, thing like a production issue came, like the platinum card user didn't get the proper offers for him. Okay, then thing like you are doing a root cause analysis for this bug which is being received. Okay, when we did the root cause analysis, we found that it is not even mentioned in the acceptance criteria that about this categorization. So the developer didn't do any categorization in the code, like whatever was to be there. Okay, so now what was we missing there when we did the root cause analysis? This was actually a requirement miss, because maybe the product owner who gave the requirements, product owner is, I mean, it's a term used in agile Scrum methodology, where considered like similar to BA in your traditional project, who give you the requirements. Okay, in agile we call it as product owner. Okay, product owner who gave the requirements was unaware of this categorization, and he didn't mention that in the acceptance criteria, so you missed it. Okay, that is called as a root cause analysis of how when a production issue or a UAT issue comes, we have to do the root cause analysis. Okay, like what is the root cause of that issue and what are the effect that is going to happen. And we have different root cause analysis techniques available, like fishbone, 5-eye analysis. There are different techniques that is available. You don't need to know about all these techniques. This is just an example I'm telling. If you are interested to know, you can read about 5-eye analysis and fishbone. Those kind of techniques are there. Anybody here who's following any such techniques in your project? Since you are less experienced, I don't think you may have.
Yeah.
But if you have that experience, you can share your experience. Yeah, 5-eye analysis is one of the root cause analysis method. You don't need to know the details. If you're interested, you can read through. Okay?
Okay.
So this is how you do the root cause analysis. Like, think of the example which we discussed about the credit card implementation. Any doubts here? Can we move?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So next we are moving to a very, very important topic, another important topic which will be there for all the ISTQB papers. 1 or 2 questions you can expect. This is similar to the objectives that we have learned. You have to read through it multiple times to understand that. Okay, let's go one by one. Testing shows presence of defects, not their absence. What does it mean? When you are testing something, think like you have found no defects in it. Okay, no defects. As a tester, you didn't find any defects in the software. Can you tell like it's a proof of correctness, or can you tell like it's 100% okay? No, maybe you have missed some scenarios, you have not included some cases. That may be also the possibility, right? We can't say like everything is no defect is present there. It's not, we cannot mention like it's a proof of correctness. That is why it says it's one of the testing principle, like testing only shows presence of defects, not their absence, which means if no defects are found doesn't mean that it's a proof of correctness. Now, another very, very important testing principle, exhaustive testing is impossible only in trivial, except in the case of trivial cases. Suppose if you are testing a very simple application, maybe testing all the combinations with all the multiple inputs and preconditions will be possible. But think like you are testing a very complex system, very complex integrated system. Do you think testing everything, every combinations with all the preconditions in all the cases will be possible except manually? No. That's what the testing principles say. Exhaustive testing is impossible except in trivial cases. Third point says early testing saves time and money. Okay. Think about the root cause analysis example that we just discussed now. That is about the credit card implementation. Okay. So this came as a production issue. Okay. Thing like, suppose requirement review was there as a quality assurance process in the project. Okay, when the requirement review or the backlog grooming was being there, maybe all the team members, like including the QA developers, the technical lead, architect, everyone will be part of that meeting. Okay, maybe someone in the QA will be able to point out, or someone in the team will be able to point out, like, okay, there may be a categorization which he is aware of. Okay, he can discuss that within the team. And by that time, okay, product owner can actually recheck this with the stakeholders and come back and say like, okay, I missed this point and I should have added this, and he rewrite the acceptance criteria for you, then we are done with the review. Okay. So in that case, this defect which came from the production have been identified. If it could have been identified very early in the life cycle during the requirement review phase itself, we could have fixed it at that time, right? It will not be costlier to fix it at the end when the production issue came. So that is why early this type of testing will save time and money. Okay, any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Another important point, defect cluster together. This is again applicable for complex projects that we are testing. Okay, when you see some past reports and all, or there'll be some more error-prone modules. Think like you have different modules integrated within your application. There'll be some modules which are more error-prone. Or analyzing the past report, you see that okay, more defects are logged around this area. Okay, so when you're testing a complex application, there are always chances like defects gets clustered together in a particular area or any particular module. That's one of the testing principles. Fifth point says test wear out. This is also a very, very important testing principle. Beware of pesticide paradox. What does pesticide paradox mean? Suppose you are applying a pesticide to an insect. When you use it over and over again, the insect become resistant to it, right? In the similar way, suppose thing like you have a regression testing. I hope like you all know what is regression testing. Regression testing is nothing. When you are developing new features, you have to ensure that your new development has not affected the older things that you have already developed. So when you do the regression testing, you have to include all the test cases and prepare the suite for your execution, regression suite for your execution. Okay, so in that case, thing like you are developing new features in each sprint, in each duration, you are delivering new features. Okay, and thing like you are not at all maintaining or updating your regression suite. You are using the same suite as you used in the older releases. Does it make any sense? You will not be finding any new defects, right? That is what is called as test wear out. We have to constantly update the regression suite according to new features. Maybe some old features have become obsolete, so you have to remove them, add the new features, add the new test cases to the regression suite. That should be regularly updated. Otherwise, there is no point in doing the regression. So whenever you hear the term test wear out, you have to relate to your regression testing phase and then understand what is actually this testing principle means. Any doubts here, whatever we discussed?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now, testing is context dependent. What does this context dependent means? Depending upon the application you are testing, all these principles may vary. Suppose, as we discussed, if you are testing a a banking application, okay, the security aspects are very, very important there because you are handling the personal PII information, personal identification information. You have to mask your passwords and things like that. Security aspects are very important. But if it's a medical product, there are certain regulatory or compliance things that you have to obey. So depending upon the product you are testing, this testing context may vary. That's what it means. Seventh point says absence of error is a fallacy. Okay, fallacy means it's a mistaken belief. Okay, when we say that absence of error is a fallacy, means like mistaken belief to expect that just finding and fixing a large number of defects will ensure success of the system, which means suppose thing like you are testing something and you have logged so many bugs in that module, still you received a production issue. What does it mean? Logging too many bugs doesn't mean that it's everything looking good. Okay, it also depends upon the scenarios that you are covering and the test coverage you have for that particular user story or that particular requirement. If you're not covering the end-to-end things there's no point in logging a number of bugs there. That's called as absence of error is a fallacy. So there are 7 testing principles, which is very, very important. Any doubts in this? move on. Okay, test activities, testware, and test roles. Okay, these three topics we are going to discuss in detail. Okay, when we started the session, we heard like, testing is actually a combination of process, right? Or it's a combination of activities. What all are that activities? That we'll be going to learn in the upcoming slides. And there's a term testware. What is testware? It refers to artifacts and assets produced during the testing. Okay, in the combination of process we discussed, right? That is test planning is there, analysis is there, then design phase is there, execution phase is there. So each phase or each activity, whatever we are getting as out of that activity, that we call it as a testware. For example, when you are doing the test design phase, what is the testware you get there? You design your test cases, right? So the artifact you get there is test cases. Okay, once we go into the details of that, you will understand it a little more better. And the third thing that is mentioned in the slide is test role. So there are two types of roles. One is test manager role and one is the tester role. Okay, can you people let me test manager? Whenever you hear what does it mean in ISTQB, test manager is similar to test lead in your project. Okay, what all are the activities that the test lead performs in your project? Can you let me know, please? What is the activities of a test lead, or what is his role in your project? What all things test lead do? Or from your learning experience, can you tell me what is test lead? What are the test leads doing in your projects? Kavya, can you let me know? I want everyone to be interactive. Kavya Murali. You're on mute. Please unmute yourself. Or you can drop a message in chat. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes. Kavya, tell me.
Okay. Test lead actually coordinate and verify whether all the testing processes are correctly performed.
Okay. Emily, any inputs from you? Test lead role.
Give the guidelines to yes, and to how to test and
You're not audible properly. Okay. Okay.
how
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
okay, test lead give guidelines to step to how that test execution
Sorry, Emily, you are breaking up. Maybe you can put it in chat. Okay, you can put it in chat. Okay, now test lead role Kavya mentioned. Okay, I want to know the role of a tester in your project. What is a tester doing? Kartika, what is a tester doing in your project? Or what does you know about the role of a tester? Kartika KB. Kartika, please unmute yourself. Or you can drop a message in chat. Kartika, are you there? Arya, can you please respond?
Yes.
Arya,
Hello, ma'am.
yeah, go ahead. What's the role of a tester?
I'm not sure. I think tester will check the requirements which is received from the customer and will check the product whether the developer is developed based upon that requirements.
You're validating against the requirements given, correct? Execute the test cases. I got a response in chat. Okay, that's correct. So basically, whenever you hear the term test manager, you can relate to the test lead role. He's the one who is doing all the controlling and monitoring activity. Like everything is going good in the project. He's the one who is interacting with your customer to publish the test summary report or the execution status of the team. Those kind of monitoring and controlling activities he's doing. Okay. And tester, as you know, he's actually designing the test cases and execution. Everything related to the execution part, he'll be doing, and all the controlling and monitoring activities done by the manager. We'll have a slide in detail about this. We'll come to that. Okay. So the test activities, the first part here, right? That's the thing we are going to discuss now. Okay, here you need to understand two terms here. That is why this example is kept here. Suppose think like you are testing a mobile application. Okay. Here there's a term, what is test basis? Okay, what is test basis? Test basis is nothing but the source of information for you to test the system, which means the requirements that is given to you, the user story, the acceptance criteria. If you are using a hardware product, your specification document, all that is your test basis. Okay. So if you are testing a mobile application, what will be your test basis there? The requirements and the list of supported devices will be your test basis. And each requirement will be an element of test basis. And each device that is supported, whether it's supporting iOS, where it's supporting Android, that each device that is being supported is also an element of test basis. So whenever you hear the term test basis, it is the source of information for you. The first part of that main slide, test activities, or the combination of process which I mentioned when we started the session. So these are the combination of process starting from test planning to the completion phase. Now we will see in detail about all these phases. The first phase is the test planning phase. Okay. Anyone here knows what is test planning? Or what is the scope of test plan? Yes, please. Uday Lakshmi, do you know?
Okay, ma'am. In test planning, we discuss the requirement. I'm talking about what we do in my company. I don't know if
Go
it's
ahead, go ahead.
Okay. So first we discuss the requirement. Then we select the resources from the team. And we will take an estimation when the backend and frontend and QA can complete their work. And we will add it to a sprint, and that's it.
Okay, that's correct.
Okay.
So test planning, I will say, like whatever we are going to do in the testing phase, that we will capture as part of test planning. Okay. Like usually the test plan document is actually prepared by the test lead. Okay. Which includes all the budgeting, like as she was mentioning, the budgeting, resourcing, the scope of testing, what is the test approach we are going to take, the schedules, deliverables, everything we are going to document in the test plan document. That's discussed in the test plan phase. 1 second, let me see once whether the definition is there. Okay. So I will tell like test plan document is like a Bible for the tester. Any member who is joining the team can use it as a reference document for knowing any activity that is related to the testing of the project. Okay, that's the first phase in testing. So the next phase is test monitoring and control. So in monitoring and control, as the name suggests, we will actually monitor the actual progress against what is mentioned in the test plan. And if some alterations or some updations should be made there after monitoring, we will make that alterations. That alterations that we do is called as the control activity. So to explain this much, little more understandable for you, think like you are going to plan your testing activity in a particular environment. Okay. And then you found that, okay, the environment is not ready. It has some issues in deployment or some variables are missing there. Okay. Then you reschedule your testing to another environment, or maybe you have even changed the dates. Okay. This is actually an example of monitoring and control. What is the monitoring you do there? You checked the environment whether it's ready for my testing. That's the monitoring. What's the control action you took there? You found that the environment is not ready, so you reschedule the testing. That's the control action. One more example I will tell you. Suppose you are on the regression testing phase of your project, and think like you have around 1,000 test cases which you have to execute manually, and you have only 3 testers in the team. Do you think, and you have only 3 days to execute your regression? Okay, do you think it's possible with 3 testers to execute all 1,000 test cases? No, right? So that is the monitoring you are doing, whether you are doing, like whether I will be able to do it within the timelines. Now you found like it's not possible. Now what will you do? You will pick only the priority 1 and priority 2 test cases with a good coverage, and then you will execute during regression time. That is the control action that you are going to take. This is what is called as monitoring and control. Any doubts here in the planning and monitoring and control phase?
No, ma'am.
Good. Okay, this example is what I mentioned just now, regression testing. Okay, so planning completed, monitoring and control completed. So the next phase is test analysis. Analysis is like you are examining your requirements or user stories, and you are identifying what is testable for you and the associated test conditions. Basically, you are determining what to test. Okay, that is done in the analysis phase. As testers, you will analyze that and drill down your test conditions. Next comes the test design phase. Already you may be knowing it. Like example, how to test, or you are actually designing your test cases there. First, you have analyzed that, you have identified what is testable. Now you are determining or designing your test cases. Next comes the implementation phase. Implementation phase, you do not confuse with the execution phase. Think like implementation phase is a phase which happens just prior to the execution phase, which means you have to make sure that now everything is ready or in place to run your test. That is what is done in the implementation phase. For example, if you have an environment, you have to ensure that the environment is ready. All the necessary settings are done in the environment. All the servers are up. Okay, all those things you have to make sure and ensure so that you can start execution in the next phase. So implementation phase is just a prior check to the execution phase. Once the implementation phase is done, like these are examples, okay, which is mentioned. Suppose you are using automation testing, then you have to ensure that the tools are ready, your test data is ready to actually start your automation test, the network settings are ready, those things. That is part of the implementation phase. Now, once the implementation phase is ready, you can go to the execution phase, where you actually execute your test cases. You log the defects, communicate that with the developers, and conduct the exploratory testing. Exploratory testing you will learn in detail in one of the modules, but for your understanding, exploratory testing is a testing which doesn't have any test cases as such. You will just explore the application on the fly. Okay, you will just randomly execute it here and there. Some of the functionalities you will execute. That's called as exploratory testing. And after the execution is done, you will move to the completion phase. Completion phase is a phase where you access or you prepare the closure report for the testing. You document the lessons learned, like the retrospective that we learned about in the Agile Scrum, right? So that can be considered as one of the example of test completion phase. We prepare the closure meeting. We hand over the item. Suppose this project is going to a maintenance mode. Maybe all the team members will not move to the maintenance project. Okay, only some will be moving and some will be from another project, or some new hires will be there. So we have to hand over the testware or all the testing things. We have to hand over to the maintenance team. Okay, and we have to ensure that we have enough test coverage for whatever we executed. Then we must ensure that the test results against entry and exit criteria. I am not explaining that in detail because entry and exit criteria, we have a detailed slide on that. There I will explain what is entry criteria and what is exit criteria. Okay, so these are the various phases starting from, I just once more iterate that: test planning, monitoring and control, Then we'll analyze the requirements. Then we design our test cases. Then we make sure environment, everything is ready. Then we go to the execution, and then we come to the completion phase. So once you prepare for the exam, you can read through all these points under each phase so that you can pick the answer. Any doubts in any of these phases? This is also your, one second. This is also all the things you may be doing in your projects, but you may not be knowing, okay, I am doing this completion phase, I am doing this planning phase, like that. Yeah, go ahead. Someone has a question?
Ma'am, actually, in my test procedures, I don't use this closure report, test closure report and closure meeting. So I'm a bit curious about what it is and how it is done.
Test closure report you're telling?
Yes.
Okay, closure report is kind of, I mean, that also depends upon the project, how we are following or maintaining the template. Usually we may, in any project we are working on, it have a definite template for that. Okay, standard templates will be there, and we will be actually preparing the necessary details in the template that is provided to us. Okay, closure report usually, mentions like how many test cases we have executed, what is the coverage for our test cases, what is the exit criteria for the execution being met. Those things actually we mention in the closure report. That also have little bit alterations here and there depending upon the project template that we are producing. Okay, sometimes if you have a kind of a QA quality assurance group is there for your project, they will actually supply this template for you, and you have to just provide the information within the template. Basically, it involves all the things, the test case, kind of a test case execution report, we can say, like how many test cases we executed, how many years passed, like that, we can give us in the closure report. The details that we give there, it's how the template is provided to us.
Okay.
This also usually, a test lead or someone will be preparing this and producing this to the stakeholders.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, now just move on. Okay, now we have learned about the various combination of process or the test activities, starting from the test planning to the test completion phase, correct? Now, test process in context, which means there will be some factors which influence the test process or the processes we learn now, right, from the test planning to the completion phase. This have some factors which influence that, like stakeholders. Stakeholders means their expectations, their willingness to cooperate. Those kind of things will have an impact. Like example, suppose you are conducting a retrospective meeting at the end of the sprint. Okay, which all the stakeholders, everyone will be present as part of the stakeholders, retrospective meeting. In that case, actually, if they are not willing to cooperate to some of the suggestions or action items that we came out of the meeting, then it's up to them. Okay, so that is what we cannot generalize this for any project that we are working on. It depends, variations will be there here and there. The team members, suppose think like all our freshers, we are using an automation tool which is very new to the project and the team is not experienced in the tool. Definitely there will be some upskilling needed there, some trainings will be needed there. So that is also having an impact. The criticality of the domain. Sometimes the domain which we are working on, maybe banking or some medical product, which has its own standards or it has its own risk, or the criticality will be higher there. That also has an impact there. Sometimes the technical factors, okay, maybe the architecture of the product or the technology that is used in the product is very complex there, or it's very, very new to the team. That also has an impact. Okay, the project constraints, maybe it's very limited budget is there. So with only the available, the resources available for the testing may be very limited there, and we have to complete the scope of testing is very thing like it's a broader scope. then definitely the quality will be less there, because we cannot follow the end-to-end process there. If we follow the process, we have to, we will have some time loss there, right? Organizational factors. Maybe there are some policies or practices that we follow in the organization, which is again having an impact. Definitely software development lifecycle. SDLC, you will learn in detail in one of the modules. But in Agile, I will say the role of tester is higher compared to the traditional model, because in Agile way of working, actually the role of tester not only it's like he designs the test cases, executes it. No, he has a role from the starting phase, even from the requirement review phase. He is involved. He can contribute. He can discuss among the team, make updations to the acceptance criteria. He is involved in the design phase, so that he will be able to know, okay, what is the data flow between what all tables the workflow is happening. So he can plan some scenarios around it, like what, suppose if he knows about, okay, these tables will be impacted due to this scenario which I am planning, then he can actually drill down that and then have some additional test cases for those scenarios as well. That is why it's considered Agile has more work in terms of testing. The tools that we use, suppose it has license limitation. Okay, then again it will be a issue for the resources to use it. The availability of the tool, usability perspective of the tool. So these all have an impact on the processes we learned, right? In each phase, this will have, all these factors will have a influence here and there. And variations will be also there. We cannot generalize all this process will be there for all the projects, because, for example, just sometime before Udayalakshmi told, right? She has a test closure report and a test closure meeting. But for all the members here who are experienced, do they agree like they all have all these bullet points listed when they do the test completion phase? No, right? In some projects we'll follow that, in some projects not. But these are the standards set. That is why I put a disclaimer when we started the session. In your practical cases, you may find differences here and there, but these are the standards which ISTQB says. So to crack the exam, you have to go through all the points and make yourself understand, okay, these are the standards being set. Okay, so when we started this discussion, we started with a slide. If you remember, I'm just going back to the slide. So test activities, testware, rules. Test activities is what we discussed from planning to completion phase. Now the next topic, testware. So this is coming in detail. That slide is just an intro slide for you. So what is testware? Testware, I already mentioned you. Output of each activity, which means starting from test planning phase to the test completion phase, what are we getting out of that activity? That is called as the testware. Let's go in one by one. So we discussed first about test planning.
Test deliverables.
Yes, test deliverables, same thing. Yeah, that's correct. So we started with test planning phase, right? So what is the output of test planning phase? In earlier version of syllabus, they called it as test work products. Test work products, testware, test deliverables, all are the same. Okay, maybe in your commonly in our projects we call it as test deliverable. But it has another word like or another synonym like test work product or artifact. Okay, you consider the planning phase. What will be the output of that phase? Obviously, there will be a test plan document. In addition to that, you have to keep in mind one more thing: risk register. You will learn, I think, in module 5, you will learn about risk more. So I'm not going to explain everything about risk here. So first understand that this first module, fundamentals of testing, is kind of a what should I say? The contents page for all the 6 modules you are going to learn. Like little bit here, little bit there, all the information like an introduction. They are giving this fundamentals of testing. Okay, this risk part and all you will have detailed in 5th module. So in addition to the test plan, you also remember that one of the work product is a risk register. Okay, what is risk register is? It is kind of a central repository or a register which you record all your risk their impact, what is its impact, what is their like of occurrence, how we can mitigate that risk, what is the current status of that risk. Like just consider it like a Excel sheet where you identify one risk. Okay, against that, what is the likelihood of, what is the impact of that risk, what is the mitigation strategy. You are keeping like a register. That's called as a risk register. You learn in detail what is its likelihood, what is impact, what is mitigation strategy. You have that in detail in another video. Okay. Second phase we learn monitoring and control, where we are actually monitoring the existing progress against whatever we mentioned in the test plan. Correct? So what will be, you're mentioning the progress there. So what will be the artifact there or the deliverable there? Some kind of progress reports, test progress reports, which means how you are progressing in the testing activity. So the test progress reports that you produce is part of the test monitoring and control artifact, or it's part of that particular phase. And also in addition, the risk information. Similar to the risk register, you keep this point also in mind, risk information. This test work products is not much important as considered from the exam point of view. Okay, but since it's there in the syllabus, we are just discussing it. I will not say you have to skip this. Just read through that. It's very, very simple, no? Once you have an idea what is this phase about, you can definitely relate it to what is the work product out of that phase. So we discussed test planning, test monitoring and control. Next is the analysis phase. What is the analysis phase? You are now identifying what all are the testable features for you. So what will be your work product there, your test conditions, your RTMS requirement traceability metrics. Can anyone say what is requirement traceability metrics?
No.
No?
We map the requirement to the test case.
Exactly. So you are given requirements, right? When you write the test cases, you have to mark that test case or link that test case to a particular requirement, so that you get that traceability. Like, okay, this test case is covering this requirement. This requirement is being covered by this test case. End-to-end traceability is there. So after analyzing your test basis or your requirements, you can identify the requirement traceability metrics. So test conditions, already we mentioned that is one of the artifacts. What is actually test condition? The situations under which testing will be conducted. That is the test condition. Test scenarios also we can say like it's an output of analysis phase. Like we can break down the high level scenarios to low level test cases. That is what called as the scenarios. Test design is the next phase. It's simple, right? What is after test design? What do you get there? You get your test cases. If you have automation scope in your project, then after the test design phase, you get your automation scripts. Correct? So your deliverables there will be automation scripts or your manual test cases. Okay. So in case of, I told you about exploratory testing, right? What is exploratory testing I mentioned? There will be no test cases. You will be testing the application on the fly, which means you are testing randomly here and there in particular areas of the software. That's called the exploratory testing. And test charter is something that we use in the exploratory testing, because in exploratory testing, since we don't have any test cases to execute there, we are randomly testing the system. There will be some kind of test charter. We call it as test charter, where we just outline the objective or what are areas we are going to cover in this exploratory testing, because we don't have test cases there. But we'll just mention, okay, this module or this area we are going to cover. That is called as the test charter. Test charter is also one of the artifact that we produced in test design phase, but it is specific to exploratory testing. Okay, test environment requirements, data requirements, the coverage items, that is specific elements of the software that needs to be tested. Okay, these points actually you have to go through multiple times to register that in your mind. You might be doing all this but you may not have identified this as a point. Only that's the thing. And this area is, as I mentioned, not very important, but you can just go through. So after the design, we move to the implementation phase. What is implementation phase? We have to keep everything ready for our testing. Correct? So which means if you have automation execution, you have to make all your test data ready, automated test scripts, your test suits, how's the order of your execution, your environment should be ready. So all those things can be considered as the implementation work product. So there are some examples mentioned in the slide. You don't need to worry much about that. This is not mentioned in the syllabus. I have just kept it for your understanding. That is in integration testing and all. What is integration testing? When we integrate different modules in the application together and test, we call it as integration testing. Okay. So in some cases, when we are doing the testing, maybe all parts of that system or parts of the application may not have been developed already. They may be under development. So in such cases, when we have to simulate the stubs and drivers, we used to call it as. Okay. Stubs and drivers, like just consider that it is kind of a mimicking the response of that particular module. Okay, some simulator programs and all, we can write it and use that for simulation. Okay. Execution is the next phase. Obviously, you know, once you execute it, what are you getting as a deliverable there? Like the reports you are producing, the test logs you are producing. All those are execution artifacts. Final phase is the completion work product. In completion phase, as we mentioned, the lessons learned, handing over to the maintenance team, all those things are done in the completion phase. So obviously, suppose if you have logged large number of defects and think like one defect or one or two defects are take more time to fix. Okay, usually at that time, what will the developers do? They will actually ask the product owner or the BA to actually convert it into another requirement or a user story so that they will take it up to the next sprint in some cases, if it's not a very priority thing to fix. If it's a large change which cannot be fixed as a bug, they will ask to create as a new PBI, that is another user story or as a change request. Okay, that things is one of the artifact of completion phase. We can document whatever lessons we learned in the previous sprint or in the iteration. That is what we do in a sprint retrospective. The same thing. Okay, in traditional way, we will document as lessons. In retrospectives, we capture it in the, whichever test management tool you are using, maybe Jira or Azure DevOps or anything. Okay, this is about the various work products or the artifacts in each phase of testing. Okay, can I move ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, next topic is traceability between test basis and testware. Now, what is test basis? Can you tell me? I explained it in a couple of slides. What is test basis?
The requirements, user stories.
Correct. That means source of information for you. Correct. And what is testware? Just now we discussed about testware.
Test deliverable.
Output of.
Yeah, test deliverable, which means output of each test activity or test planning, test design, test analysis. Each phase, what are you getting as output? That is called as a testware. Now, how will you maintain the traceability between a test basis and testware? So to understand that, you can take the example of RTM, that is requirement traceability metrics, where you are mapping your requirements to your test cases. For example, requirement 1 is covered by test case 1 and 2. Requirement 2 is covered by test case 3 and 4, like that. That mapping. So what is the test basis here? Requirement is the test basis here. And what is the testware here? Your test cases are the testware, and it's the output of which activity? Or which phase is having test cases as the testware?
Test design.
Yeah, test design. So which means you can trace between your test bases, which is your requirements here, and testware is the test cases here. So that is how you can trace between your test bases and testware. This is an example which you can understand what is the traceability between test cases and testware. Traceability of test cases to requirements can verify that requirements are covered by test cases. That's what we mentioned now. Traceability of test results to risk can be used to evaluate level of residual risk in a test object. Okay, that's something related to the risk. Another example just to mention, but I mean this one RTM itself is more and good enough for you to understand what is the traceability between test basis and test line. Now, if you remember the slide which I created some time before, the third part, first part was the test activities, which we learned all the phases. Second part was the testware, which we just now learned output of each activity. Third part was the roles in testing, which we already discussed that there are two testing roles. One is the testing role, another is the test management or the test lead role. Okay, that we discussed already. Test lead or the test manager, what is his role? All the monitoring and control activity. But the tester's role is the execution part, designing part is done by the tester. So test management is similar to the test lead role. Monitoring and control activity similar to what I mentioned now. Testing role is either functional testing or automation testing, which is basically execution step in testing. Okay, what does the tester's role do? He does the analysis, he does the design, implementation, and execution. All this is considered as the role of testing. I'm just walking through that because we already discussed this when we started this slide. Okay, now the next topic, essential and good practices in testing. So this is a new topic introduced in the new version of syllabus. What are the essential skills and what is the good practice? As a tester, some skills are set as a standard, or ISTQB says like we should have this skill. One is communication skill, definitely that we should have, because we are the ones who are communicating the defects to the developers. So we should communicate everything in a modest way, not pinpointing anything or making battles there. We should communicate in a very, very, very modest way. Okay, so communication skill, analytical skills, because we are the ones who are analyzing the requirements and then raising the defects. So we should be always having that analytical skills by default. Technical proficiency, whatever, suppose you are an automation tester, obviously you should have the technical proficiency in that domain and whatever tool or the language you are using. Attention to detail definitely should be there because you are the one who are examining your acceptance criteria and raising the defects. Okay, so these are the essential skills. Good practices, you should be in a mode of early involvement. That is what the testing principle also says. Early testing saves time and money. You should start your work even from the requirement phase, in the design phase, in every phase you should be involving in and trying to contribute. In Agile, anyway, it's there by default. You don't need to do anything. Collaboration, you should collaborate very good even with the developers to understand the requirements, or you should collaborate with your product owner to understand the acceptance criteria or any clarifications needed by you. And you should have a mindset to continuously learn. There will be new things coming in, new tools will be coming in, new requirements will be coming in. So you should try to understand the system and to learn and adapt to whatever changes are being there. The general skills required for testing. What are the general skills required? Definitely testing knowledge should be there. Okay, like that's what we have all the sessions, right? Like basic knowledge about the testing. What are the test techniques? What are processes we have? Good practices. All those things that should be there to actually become a good tester. Thoroughness, carefulness, curiosity, attention to detail, being methodological. All this we just discussed now in the previous slide. Attention to detail and all those things. Definitely communication skills. You should be active listener and a good team player. Like you should collaborate with the team. You have to gel with the developers, them, try to understand and work as a single team. Okay, these are I think It's part of whatever we discussed in this essential and good practices. Any doubts here? Any points which I have to discuss in detail? Okay, I'll take it as a no. Okay, continuation of general skills. Same to whatever we discussed in the previous slides as well. Technical knowledge, like whatever tools you are using in automation testing, you should be proficient in using that tools, and in the language coding skills should be there. If in the considering the automation perspective, if you considering the manual perspective, you should have the domain knowledge of the application you are going to test, those things. Analytical thinking, critical thinking, creativity, that should be there. Domain knowledge definitely should be there. Suppose you are working on a banking project, you should definitely have a domain knowledge about the system. Okay, if you see, like, nowadays there are trainings even specifically for banking domain or medical domain. Why is it actually conducted? Because you need to have that end user perspective, or you should have that domain knowledge actually to start testing with or start using when you actually start using the application. Okay. With that, we are moving to the next topic. This is also one newly introduced topic in the new version of syllabus, that is whole team approach. Whole team approach is nothing but the agile way of working, that is called as the whole team approach. As the name suggests, we have to work as a single team collaboratively. Suppose thing like a demo for the product happened. Okay. Suppose something fails during the demo. Okay. Who will be responsible for that? According to your perspective. Yes, please. QA. Any other answers? Something goes wrong. Namita, what do you say?
The whole team is responsible.
Whole team is responsible. Okay. Any other opinions? Adina? Adina? Are you there?
Yes, QA will be responsible.
QA. Okay, and we have different opinions, but considering the agile way of working, as one person said it rightly, whole team should be responsible. It's not the responsibility of the QA, it's not the responsibility of the developer or the product owner or anyone as a single member in the team. It's the responsibility of the whole team. That's what the concept of agile way of working. Whole team approach in testing is a collaborative and inclusive methodology that involves entire project team, including developers, testers, business analysts, product owners, and other stakeholders in the testing process. So we should consider that we are a single team and we are working towards a common goal of achieving quality, not like any single member in the team. Okay, that's what whole team approach says. Working collaboratively. Now the next topic, that is independence of testing. Okay. Now tell me, whoever is working in a project currently, do you have a dedicated testing team for your project?
Yes.
You have. How many members you are having in your testing team?
3 members.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? Only one member here who is working. All others are freshers. I hear only the voice of Uday Lakshmi. Anyone else who is having experience or working at least 1 year? Abhishek? Yes. Who is this? Namita? Yeah. You have an independent testing team? You have a dedicated testing team? How many members are there?
There are 3.
Okay. Okay. Independent testing means actually you have a dedicated or a separate testing team which does the testing activity for the project. Okay, that is what is called as independence of testing. What is actually the benefit of actually doing this independent testing? Okay, consider, like, I'll tell a simple example. Consider like you are on a recruitment process. and the project manager is having a thought like women candidates are very less committed to their jobs, and he don't like to hire any women candidates. Okay, what does that mean? His prejudiced mind has actually influenced the decision in hiring process. Correct? So in similar way, suppose if you don't have an independent testing team, what will happen? If I am the creator of the work or I am developing the system, I am only testing the system means I will have less interest in revealing the defects which I only developed. Correct? That's a human psychological nature, right? I will not be interested in showcasing my defects. So that is one basic or very basic thing or very basic benefit that we get when we have an independent testing team. Otherwise, the defects that will be revealed is less if you don't have an independent testing team. That is why second point says independent helps in detecting issues that might be overlooked by developers and contributors to the overall effectiveness of testing process. Also, it ensures that unbiased decision. So, think the example that we discussed now. That project manager was having that a bias thing to male candidates, right? That is why he didn't have an interest to hire women candidates there. So when we have an independent testing team, they will be kind of unbiased. Okay, they will always try to break the system. They will help in, just all the scenarios, whatever possible, and to uncover the defects. Okay, that's the first benefit we are getting. So now you understood what is independent testing. Now there are various degrees of independence. This independent testing is also one important topic. You will get one question from here, one or two questions from here. What are the different degrees of independence? So the lowest most degree or the lower degree is no independent testers. That means you don't have any independent testing team in your project. That is, developers are testing their own code. That is the lowest degree. Coming to the next higher level, that is independent developers or testers doing peer reviews. Okay. Think like there are 3 developers in the team. I am working on module 1, another guy is working on module 2, another guy is working on module 3. When I finish my development, the other developer will do my module testing. Similarly happens for the other 2. That is called as a peer review. That's the second level. Coming to third level, independent test team or group within the organization reporting to project management. So consider the example like there are a team of testers who are independent and outside the development team but reporting to the project manager. One second. Okay, so this is like you have a separate independent testing team, and it will be like you are reporting against a vertical. So in some organization, if you see, you will be having a separate testing domain as such. Okay, whenever we are having any requirement for testers, from that domain pool, we allocate testers to each project. Okay, when that project release happens also, these testers will go back to the pool of that particular testing domain team. Okay, then again a new project comes means from this testing domain, people will be allocated to different projects testing. That's called as independent testing within the or group within the organization reporting to project management. Fourth degree is independent testers from business organization or user community. So to understand this, if you see nowadays, the non-functional testing, right? Like performance, security, usability, portability, those kind of testing, we have separate teams to do it. The person or the testers who do functional testing is not the same person who do the performance testing. We have a dedicated team for performance testing alone. We have a dedicated team for security testing alone. Those testers will only do performance testing or security testing. That groups, right? Like usability testing, there'll be a separate group doing it. That is called as the fourth degree. Like separate specialized groups to do that type of particular testing. And the final or the last level of independence is external to the organization, like in a hybrid mode. In some cases, if you see nowadays, projects are like working in a hybrid mode, not like work from home and work from office. That's not what I mean. It's like when you consider a project, suppose in a project, developers may be from one organization, like from Infosys, and testers will be from another organization, say Wipro. Okay, but they work as a single team. Like developers will be from another organization, testers will be from another organization. Kind of outsourcing we will be doing in some project. That's the last degree. So there are various degrees starting from no independent testers, then peer reviews, then a separate testing domain group which have a pool of testers. Then what is the next degree? Separate specialized testing groups like performance, security, usability, like that, and finally the outsourcing. Any doubts in this degrees?
No, ma'am.
Now, already we may have discussed what is the benefit of independent testing. The first and foremost thing is unbiased reporting. There will be no bias because I am not the creator of the work, so I will always have a mindset to break the system. That's one foremost and common benefit that we get. Now, testers not directly involved in development process are more likely to approach testing. The same thing is expressed in a elaborative way, unbiased perspective, identifying defects and issues without preconceived notions, which means without any second thought, whenever they see anything wrong or in the behavior of the system, they will report it then and there. No biasing there because I am born to actually break the system. First and third point is the same only. Second point, independent testers can verify challenge assumptions made by stakeholders during specification and implementation of the system. Which means as testers, we are more experienced in maybe in that particular domain, or we have the experience in how actually to perform the validations and all. Okay, so we have that ability to actually challenge whatever is mentioned in the acceptance criteria or whatever is mentioned in the requirements. As experienced testers, we may have that inbuilt capability within ourselves. Testers approaching the software with a different mindset and set of expectations may discover defects that developers did not anticipate. Okay, we have learned about the general and essential skills for testing, right? Like attention to detail, curiosity, all those things. So a tester is expected to have all those things. So he's testing the system from the user perspective also. So he knows how the system should work. He thinks from that perspective. So he will be more efficient in detecting the defects as compared to the developers who is not experienced much in that area. Now, what will be the drawbacks when we consider independent testing? One is isolation from development team. When we have a separate independent testing team, what will be the difficulties? There will be some isolation from the development team. That collaboration that will have should be happening with the developers, that will be lacking there. Okay, thing like suppose there's a requirement discussion meeting that is happening, which the independent testing team is not part of. Okay, there may be some discussions happening. And if that collaboration within the team is not there, they are isolated from the development team, means that communication will not pass to the testers. And testers will, when they test the system, they will be raising some false positives there. Maybe in that discussion, what happened in that meeting, they have made some updations to the requirements, which actually the testing team is not aware of. And since collaboration is not there, they are not aware of that. Okay, that's one drawback. Another thing, developers may lose a sense of responsibility for quality. That is again similar to what we discussed on the part like developers are more experienced in building solutions, not like testing anything. Okay, so they will be actually considered as not responsible in the case of quality. Okay, the other side they are telling here. And in some cases, if we have a dedicated testing team, they are considered as bottlenecks for delays in release. Okay, Means like, suppose after the development is done, the thing is handed over to the testing team. Okay, they will definitely take some good amount of time to finish the testing and do the things, right? I mean, certify that everything is working fine. Okay, that process may be delayed if we have a team of independent testers. But in agile way or in the common way that we work is like once each sprint or each PBI is being development is done, they immediately assign for testing. It's not like the entire thing is developed and then they give for testing, right? So in some cases, there will be some, they will be considered as the bottleneck there, which actually delay the release. And in some cases, independent testers may lack the important information, like the example which we discussed, like some meetings happening within the team, which the collaboration is not there, means independent testers may lack the information and they will keep on raising some false positives, which are not actually issues there. So basically, the main drawback is like isolation from the team, that collaboration will lack there, and they may lack some important information which the developer is aware, but the tester is not aware. Okay. So whatever we have learned today, we started with the software testing, then testing and debugging. Then we learned the 7 testing principle objectives, different test activities, testware roles, then the general and essential skills, and finally winded off with the test independence. So these are the main topics that we discuss in fundamentals of testing. Any doubts in any of this recap sessions which you want to reiterate? I have to discuss one set of sample questions also. So if any topics you wanted to discuss one more time in any of these areas, we can discuss now before we go to the sample questions. Can we move ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we'll move to the sample questions. Let's try to attempt some of the questions here. The debugging is the role of
Developer.
Yeah. In some cases, how you have to answer the question is you can go from the options. Okay. So only confusion here is between the developer and tester, because we have never learned any area where we learned about business analysis and system analysis. Okay, the confusion is between the tester and developer. So directly you can rule out some options then and there itself. Okay. So here, as you rightly said, debugging is the role of developer. How is the whole team approach present in the interactions between testers and business representatives? Can you go through the option and select one? Whole team approach with respect to testers and business representatives. Meaning like thing like testers and BA or testers and product owner. Business representatives decide on test automation approaches. Do BA have any role in defining test automation approach?
No.
No, right? So that's not correct. Tester helps business representative define test strategy. Does the BA write the test strategy?
No. Option D.
So that, yeah, that's correct. So that is also not correct. Business representative are not part of whole team approach. That is also not correct, because whole team we have learned developers, BA, product owner, everyone is there. So which means obviously D is the correct answer. Testers help business representative to create suitable acceptance test. So when during the backlog grooming or when we are refining the requirements, testers actually involved all as part of these meetings, and he has that discussion and he helps the BA or he gives the comments to actually refine the acceptance criteria. So here option D is the correct answer. Which statement is true? This is something from the testing principle.
Different testing is needed depending upon the application.
Yeah, that is correct. So which principle it is relating to? Testing is context dependent. That there we explained this, right? So all software is tested in same way. That is not correct. A technique that finds defects will always find defects. Not correct. A technique that has found no defects is not useful. That also we can't say. So whatever we learned in principle, it's related to different testing is needed upon depending upon application. Can you give the answer for option? Question 4. It's a direct question. Read the keyword which I have told you to identify.
Quality assurance.
Yeah, because here adherence to proper
Process.
process is there. It's a direct definition, which is of quality assurance. Which is the correct option?
Option A.
A.
Yeah, error has another word. We can call it as a mistake also. It results in a defect, which is a fault or bug. Option B is written in reverse format, which is not correct. Option C says a person can make failure, which is also not correct. Okay, so here the correct option is option A. Okay, so that's it for today, but please don't leave the session. Let me stop share. I want to share the feedback form as well. Okay, so before we wind up, actually this ISTQB fundamentals is not a very Herculean task for you to clear. Okay, only thing is you have to go through these topics repeatedly. Okay, and please adhere to we have a mock test at the end. Okay, you prepare well for the mock test before you attend it. And then once you prepare it and attend it, definitely that sessions itself is enough for you to actually pass the exam. Okay, you have to align to the syllabus. You have to go through all the topics and you don't spend much time in the difficult topic. You can come back and visit it later. Okay, I will post the feedback form, okay, in the chat. Please access that and give your feedback. PPTs will not be shared. Okay, this is the proprietary info for the training purpose. So it will not be shared, but you will get the notes, which is similar to whatever we discussed in the PPT and the discussion sessions. Okay, after maybe before the next training session, you will get the notes, which has all the content similar to the PPT. Please access the chat. I have put the feedback form there. Please access it, fill it. Any other doubts other than that? Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask also. So we have tried to keep it in the not to switch to local language because if I switch to local language, many of the keywords you may miss, okay, which will be useful for you to actually attend the exam. That's why we prefer always to be on the right track without switching to the local language. Yeah, before leaving the session, please fill the feedback form. Any other doubts from anyone? If not, once you fill the form, you can leave the session. If you have any doubts, please stay back and here.
Is this recorded video available in our app?
No, I guess it will go to the whoever started the recording, and the organizers themselves have started this. They will only receive, I guess.
Okay.
Any other doubts? Notes will be shared post the session. Maybe before the next session, you will get it.
Thank you, ma'am. Can I leave?
Yeah, sure. Once you give the feedback, you can leave.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.